But I think the main things is at the end of the day, volleyball is volleyball. It's in the same 9x9 court, and the rules are the same. So we is that on the back of your shirt?
Yeah, it's on the back of the shirt.
Muted. A little free shout out for you. And it doesn't matter who's on the other side of the net. You need to still execute to the best of your ability if you want a chance to win.
That's right, Brett Walsh. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the 9x9, the 81 square meters of the best volleyball coverage on the internet. My name's Rob St. Clair, live from Chicago. That is Everett Delorme, live from Toronto. And Everett, we are back. It is a regularly scheduled Tuesday show for the first time in what seems like forever. We're going to go ahead and call this episode 39.
We're just gonna pick up where we left off before the World Championships.
Yeah, episode 38 was all the way back in August, and I think we've done like maybe 30 extra episodes between like all the ones from VNL when we were there and men's and women's World Championships special episodes. We're back to our regularly scheduled Tuesday, 7:30 Eastern sort of situation, which is great. We've got a lot of club volleyball to get into. That's going to be the main subject of this show, is the beginning of the club season, because we have all of our special episodes covering the Women's World Championship, including we have one coming up on Sunday covering the Women's World Championship finals. But Everett, we simply must talk about this. We simply must talk about, at least briefly,
we can't not address what happened today.
We have to. We have to jump into the matches.
And I mean, we had kind of toyed about like, hey, maybe we touch on it a little bit. Do we see what happens? I mean, we kind of thought that all these quarterfinals were going to be kind of status quo. You know, we were always just kind of like, man, you know what? And in the first set of matches, let's call it the first round, because they were wonderfully planned all for the same day with two matches going on basically at the same time. Fantastic planning. The first round of matches was pretty much status quo. You had Italy pretty much beat up on China, other than the third set where China kind of got in. You know, Italy made some errors, China got going, and then Italy, you know, took in the fourth, and then the USA just all over Turkey. But in the afternoon matches, that's where we saw some of the best volleyball we've seen this entire tournament.
Those were the two best matches of the tournament, in my opinion, so far, and it was just insane that they were on at the same time. It was crazy that they were on at the same time.
So frustrating.
God, I mean, I had it on the multi-view thing up on this big screen up in front of me, which was okay, but like I was really, you could really only possibly watch one match at a time. It's just the way that it is, and it was criminal to take anyone's full attention away from either of the matches that were going on. We're talking about Brazil versus Japan and Serbia versus Poland. Both unbelievable matches, but sure enough, chalk does advance. Brazil advances in 5 and Serbia advances in 5. Just amazing matches. We'll talk about them really quickly and then break them down much more on Sunday's show.
Yeah, I think we have to talk about them. I mean, first and foremost, I think the Japan versus Brazil game was my favorite match of the tournament. The first two sets were just an absolute clinic from Japan. And you could make the argument that Brazil wasn't playing well. They made some changes that really helped them out throughout the longevity of the match, absolutely. But Japan was putting on an absolute clinic. And I know maybe I have the reputation of being, you know, hard on Japan, but I have to say, like, what that team did today made me respect them so much more. That was the best defensive performance I think I've ever seen.
Oh my goodness, it was so good.
And then the magic that Seki does with that offense, the evenness that you look at the numbers and how you have 4 hitters who are scoring over 16 points. That's incredible. Like, they are just so hard to deal with, and they make all of their high right plays in defense, right? Like, some of those digs that they were making today were absolutely ridiculous. My new favorite libero in the world is why am I blanking on
Satomi Fukudome? Apparently a rookie. That blows my mind. She was everywhere. And yeah, Japan, I mean, the set scores, Japan went up 25-18, 25-18. Like, it was a 2-0 beat down early, forcing Brazil into completely emptying their bench. They exchanged, I think, every single player other than Gabi got switched out at some point during this match. Brazil needed to dig as deep as they possibly could. They were making way too many errors early, and just not, they couldn't buy a point. Japan was everywhere defensively. Everett, would you believe me if I told you that Japan outblocked Brazil in the whole match?
I mean, yes, I
9-6?
would because I watched that match, and Yamada in the middle was an absolute monster. She had more blocks herself, 7, than Brazil had the entirety of the match, and it was
Unbelievable.
really this kind of stuff. And I wouldn't say that Brazil was blocking poorly. Just Japan's offense was so on point. It was so fast. They were moving it around so much. Seki is an absolute magician with the ball, the way she runs it. And when you look at the points, Hayashi with 21, Yamada with 19, Ishikawa with 18, Unui with 16. Like just across the board, they were so good on this day. And you know what? I think ultimately it's probably better that Brazil moves on because I think they put up a better fight against Italy in the semifinals. But I think just Japan definitely deserved to win today, and I'm a little sad that they didn't.
Yeah, that's exactly the takeaway that I had is if Japan had pulled the upset again, because remember Japan did beat Brazil in pools, I don't think they would have stood any chance at all against Italy. Brazil will definitely produce the more competitive semifinal, but man, did Japan leave it all out on the line today. And I'm totally with you. I have all the respect in the world for the way that team played with just given what their identity is, embracing it completely, doing their homework against the matchup, making Brazil extremely uncomfortable. And they were just so close. Yeah, the balance in their offense was pretty special, but it is Brazil who were pushed to their absolute limits, getting kind of embarrassed in those first 2 sets, and they bring it all the way back with the reverse sweep. Gabi Gumara is amazing again, 25 for 50, only 8 errors. Honestly, is not a terrible percentage for her. What's that, like 17 over 50 is, I think, 34% efficiency. Not bad at all, but especially putting the entire offense on her back. The next best scorers were the 2 middles. Carl Gataz with 14, Anna Carolina with 13. They brought in Rosa Maria at the outside hitter position.
That was the game changer, right?
Yes.
Bringing in Rosa Maria and Lorena on the right side. And I mean, Lorena plays in Japan, so I think that there was just that recognition of styles. But those changes is what helped the change, like especially spark that change in the third set when Brazil started to turn things around.
And they turned it around, and sure enough, we're going to get Brazil versus Italy like we kind of all expected. But the path to get there was anything but expected. And again, huge credit to Japan for that match they played today. That was just electric. The level of defense was, like you said, it might have been the best I've ever seen.
It 100% was, and I really want to go back to Satomi Fukudome real quick, the libero for Japan, because as we mentioned, she's only 24 years old. She's in her rookie season. From what I was understanding from the Discord chat is that she was on the roster for VNL, but World Champs is when she first started to play. She looked like an absolute veteran out there, making digs that I couldn't believe, making plays in second setter. Like there was a point in time when she turned around the tide of the game completely in the 5th set on her own, making digs, setting out a system. She was a workhorse back there, and just watching, like I said on Sunday that the USA is the best team in volleyball, but after watching Japan play today, I don't know if I don't know if I believe that anymore. And I think that Japan might be the best team. And then the way they play together, the way their blocking and their defense works together, they dig everything. It's so hard to get anything down on them. You have to put so much pressure. And I think Fukudome is really going to become a big star in women's volleyball because she was absolutely phenomenal. And to be honest, there's so many MVPs that you could have given it to, but I think just maybe emotionally, if Japan would have won, I would have given player of the match to Fukudome.
I agree with you, and but one of the breakout players of the tournament for sure. And like it's funny because as we'll talk about later on in the show, when you get breakout players, like players that come out of nowhere and explode onto the scene, like, well, we've got a couple in the men's Superliga coming up, but how long can you sustain that? How long can you keep that level of production up when you're new to a system or nobody knows about you yet, nobody has film on you? That problem doesn't apply to liberos. Like she's only just going to get better from this experience. Like reading the game at a level against an opponent like Brazil is just a hugely impressive performance in her first match out. So yeah, big credit to Fukudome, the new Japanese libero. And I mean, we got to talk about Serbia, Poland as well.
100%. We can't not touch on that match because we were inches away from having maybe a potential new elite team in the world of women's volleyball.
So close.
Maybe
Poland
not overall, but
so
definitely
close.
kind of the short term. Yeah.
Yeah, this was absolutely back and forth. Serbia ends up taking it over Poland in Poland 16-14 in the fifth. Crazy back and forth match. Magdalena Stesiak carried that team as far as she possibly could. 40 points. 40. I think she's only the second player in the tournament to reach that mark behind, obviously, Britt Herbots. 34 for 68 attacking, 50% kills, only 10 errors, 3 stuff blocks, and 3 service aces for Magdalena Stesiak. Just a ridiculous team on her back performance.
All-time performance.
All-time performance. Remember,
Truly,
she's
truly.
only 21. It feels like we've been talking about her for years. This girl is only 21 years old.
Dude, that's one thing when you look at this tournament, you look at like Britt Herbots. I forget how old she is, but she's not that old.
Maybe Tiana Boskovic is 25.
We got Kara Kurt, who's 22 as well. I mean, Kira Van Rijk, who was a top 4 scorer, is also 22. Like, there is so much. Like, the best talent in the world right now is 26 and under in women's volleyball. Like, we are about to see. Actually, the next decade in women's volleyball is going to be truly phenomenal, I think. And you're seeing these superstars like Magdalena Stesiak, who's really impressed me throughout the, like, and we talked about it, Rob, that like we didn't know how much further she could go in this tournament. And she proved today that she still had some in the tank, like 40 points. That's a hell of a lot of volume. 68 sets she saw today. She did see get a bit of an ankle roll.
Oh, I was about to bring that up. That there was a freeze frame where her ankle was sideways. And I mean, anybody who's played volleyball has had that happen.
She was definitely limping after that. She was definitely
for
hurting
sure.
After that.
The adrenaline carried her through the rest of the match, and she did everything she could to push Poland to the semifinal. They were just ever so close, but a couple missed opportunities and side out because they were leading by 2. I think it was 10-8 when they were serving at 10-8. All they had to do was side out 5 times, and the match was theirs. They had an overpass and then the ace to end up losing at 16-14. And then a couple where where Tiana Boskovic was back at the service line. They passed 2 dimes, and on the first one, they couldn't quite side it out. I think they got block touched and dug or something like that. So close, so close. Give Magdalena Stesiak all the credit in the world. I think Joanna Volleyball had one of her best matches ever, at least on the national team level. But in the end, Serbia is where they are. They survive. They advance on 36 points by Boskovic, and they're going to take on the United States in the semifinals less than 24 hours later after a crazy 5-setter. I think that's another scheduling mistake. I don't think you can force a team to play back-to-back like that in the late stages of the tournament.
It's a little ridiculous, and I mean, let's just like tack it on to the pile that the 3 boomers in the trench coats couldn't figure out for this World Championships, and tack it on to the even larger pile that we saw with the men's tournament. Just I really don't want to get into it because you know I could go off on it all day. To me, though, this match was another all-time classic. The atmosphere in Lodz was it in Lodz?
Yes. No, this one might have been in Gliwice. I think they.
That's right. It is in Gliwice, but the atmosphere there was absolutely electric. You know, Poland does it right, and it was phenomenal. But I do think that like coming into this summer, my notion of Polish women's volleyball was a lot lower. Like my respect for them was a lot lower than it is now. I think they're truly putting themselves as to be one of the next teams up. And, before I would have said that Turkey was hand and fist far ahead of Poland, and I don't think that's the case anymore.
I agree that matchup is one that I really like. I think those teams are pretty similar. They're supported by great volleyball federations and systems, and those two teams it's going to be kind of a race to climb up the mountain faster between Poland and Turkey over the next several years into being one of those top 4 or 5 teams in the world. And I'm with you. Poland absolutely has that potential now after a match like this, where I didn't quite see it at that level before. So all the credit in the world, but sure enough, we do have the semifinals that we all expected. So tomorrow we've got Serbia versus the United States let me look at the times. 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And then the following day on Thursday, Italy versus Brazil at 2 p.m. Eastern. We have Friday off and Saturday medal matches. So we'll be back on Sunday evening sometime to talk about the rest of the bracket on the women's side of the World Championship. But those matches today absolutely had to get addressed because those last 2 were just all-time greats.
Yeah, they absolutely were. And if you have the chance, if you have the Volleyball TV subscription and you didn't watch it, My suggestion would be to go back and watch Japan versus Brazil, because I think Japan put on an absolutely all-time performance, and just the volleyball level of volleyball, nothing whatsoever against the Poland-Serbia game was another all-time match. The best two games in the tournament, but to me, the level that Japan was playing at, never seen a defensive performance like that in my decade plus in international volleyball.
It was amazing to watch. So huge shout outs. I mean, the game, as we're about to talk about a lot of club stuff on the men's side, and my takeaway from just sitting here today and watching all this volleyball was, man, this sport is so awesome. This sport is in such this sport is in such a good place, man. I mean, we complain about the governing bodies all the time because there's so much we could obviously do better, and we always will try to do better with the way that we cover the game on this show, but the entertainment value of volleyball is just sky high, and it is more accessible than it's ever been, and it's just banger after banger, match after match. It's been incredibly fun to watch the game the last month, from the end of the men's world championship to this and to club season starting up. It's a nice time to be a volleyball fan right about now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hell, you can even go back to the VNL. Like, how many weeks did we have in between? Like 3 weeks.
Yeah,
between men's world championships and the end of VNL, right? So, like, we got plenty of things going on here, and it's you're right. I think the entertainment value and the quality right now that we're seeing in volleyball as a whole has never been higher.
So, with that said, I know throughout all this big summer here on this show, we've picked up a lot of new fans, a lot of new viewers, a lot of new Discord members, which is amazing. The Volleyball Source Discord has exploded in members. Join that, link in the description if you haven't already. But if you're new to the show, this is kind of the first normal Tuesday show we've had in a while. We're going to go over, we're going to jump back into the men's club season, because there's 2 or 3 weeks now under the belt for the men's club season. We'll do this every Tuesday. We'll talk about the matches of the week, any big storylines in the whole volleyball world, and this will just kind of be the flow of how we cover the next 6 or 8 months of volleyball until national team season comes back next year. So without further ado, I think it's the right place to start is the best men's league in the world, and that is Italy. The Italian Superlega is underway. I did a very big preview on it with the great Tommy Blizzard a couple weeks ago here on YouTube. I really highly encourage everyone to check that out. I think it's like must watch to kind of get into the league, but we'll jump into the standings in the first 2 weeks of matches here.
Rob, when you did that preview with Tommy, which once again was fantastic, I encourage everyone to go check that out. It's on our YouTube channel. When you did that preview, would you have suspected some of the carnage that we've seen in week one? Because in weeks 1 and 2, because I would not have expected some of the things that we're seeing right now. Would you have expected Padova and Verona to be 2-0 given their schedule? Would you have expected Piacenza to be 0-2 given their roster, right? Would you have expected Lube to have lost to Padova? Like there's so many things going on. Cisterna is undefeated still. I mean, like, they had one good win against Milano, played Toronto in the second match, but what is going on in the Superlega this season? I think it's kind of blown wide open. And I really, really hope that we just have parity across the board, because even Perugia is losing sets to Siena out here.
What is going on is the exact right question to ask. Like, again, that video I did with Tommy, it's about 2 hours long, but I thought, and it's been really well received as a great fundamental baseline for the Superlega this year. I'm going to give everyone the homework assignment to go watch that if you haven't already, because it'll help you follow the Superlega. A couple of takes that I had during that podcast that already have been proven dead wrong. My 2 favorite candidates for relegation were Cisterna and Padova. 4 thumbs down on those takes. Couldn't have been more wrong about that so far. And then a player that I did not know, that neither Tommy or I really knew what to expect, that just exploded onto the scene, is Maxim Sapozhkov of Verona, who we will talk about in a moment, which is just one of the crazy young superstars in the game. Ridiculous.
He has been the shining star out of absolutely nowhere Russia, and is just the next big, 6 foot or 7'2" or like 7'4", something like that.
I think he's 7'3", 220, the tallest player in the league. You know what? Let's start with that. Let's start with Verona.
Absolutely, because how is this not the biggest story? There's 2 massive stories here.
Padova's undefeated too. It's crazy. So Look at this photo.
Look at this photo. Here. Him in the terrible jerseys.
I don't think they're terrible. I would not personally, as a player, like the long sleeve. I'm not about that, but the colors are fire, and I think
Everything
they're on
but the
something
sleeves
there.
are fantastic. If you had this jersey, short sleeves, mint. The
Yeah.
long sleeves, throw it down the list. F
Interesting
grade.
choice. Yeah, interesting choice. And one of the great things about the Super League is that we get new teams. Everyone has new uniforms this year, and I always really like seeing what they do. A lot of good ones, by the way. Look at that man in the middle of your screen. That
Monster.
is Maxim Sapozhkov. He wears number 5. He plays opposite for Verona. He is 2 meters and 20. Look at how much taller he is than everyone else on that screen. Rok Mozic, number 19 at the right side of the screen, is 2 meters tall. Luca Spirito, number 13, who he's standing right next to, is 1 meter 99. Gord Perrin, who is behind the libero there on the left side, is like, 201? And Alex Grozdanov on the left side is a middle blocker, a big dude. He's 2 meters and 5. That's like 6'9". He looks tiny in comparison to this 7'3" giant in the middle of the screen. And Verona, I said on the preview show that at the very least they were going to be extremely fun to watch. I did not expect this. They start off the season beating Piacenza with a 5-set banger, 24-22 in the 5th, and Maxim Sapozhkov put on a clinic in both of his 2 matches so far. What a breakout performance.
Like when you look at everyone, no one knew who this guy was. Yes, he played in Russia, whatever. Yes, he'd been on some U19 teams, but no one knew who he was. We all thought that Nomura Keita was going to be the big guy on this team. And don't get me wrong, he's done some good things. He's put up some decent numbers. They've had to take him off just because of the passing. But I mean, hell, in game 1, he was 11 for 18 with only 1 air, 3 blocks.
And this is a kid who I didn't even know Nomura Keita could play outside hitter.
No, me neither. I think his passing's not that bad.
No,
but then in both of these matches, they've gone to the bench with Gord Perrin, and he's ended up finishing off. Gord has been he's been not great offensively so far, which has been a little bit surprising to me, but his passing and his defense and everything else has been fantastic. Not that it matters, because what we saw in the Trentino game is that every serve was going at Rok Mozic, understandably, because he's the other half of the equation. But listen to Sapozhkov's stat line in this one: 39 points. 28 for 43.
You're looking
only
at the wrong
2
match.
errors and 3 blocks.
That's the match against Trentino, which we also have to point out, because Verona so far 2 5-set wins.
This to me is incredible. 3 aces and 8 blocks.
That's crazy. That's crazy. So that's the match against Trentino, the second match of the year. Verona started off the first match of the year. I mean, pretty similar deal. Sapozhkov had 25. And I have no idea Verona was going to have this level of options. They have options on this team, because the first match they started with Spirito setting and Grozdanov in the middle, and Sapozhkov at opposite Keita and Mozic on the outsides. Then in the second match against Trentino, they send out Rafael to set. And then they have 2 Italian middles in Cortesia and Mosca, which is just fine. So they're complying with the foreigner limit. They can bring in Gord Perrin at the wings to pass for Keita. And Sapozhkov is just this gigantic beast on the right side who's making Trentino's elite level block look invisible. It's unbelievable. I had no idea. I mean, I knew Verona was going to be fun. I didn't know that they were going to be like this. They beat 2 championship contenders their first 2 matches in Piacenza and Verona. Crazy start to the season.
And they have this weird mix of, young guys who are some could be, tomorrow's stars with Keita, and definitely tomorrow's stars. You've got Mozic, Keita, and Sapozhkov. Can you name me 3 more exciting young players that we have in the game right now?
And then a 42-year-old center.
But then, yeah, exactly. You have Rafael, who's been there for how long? You've had Gord Perrin, who's a hardened veteran, who's been to 2 Olympic Games and has played all over the world. This is an interesting team. This team is this is a team that I think goes from fun to being potentially lethal,
dangerous,
to being dangerous, and to being what happens with this team. I think the only thing that you have to question is that you have the stooge Stoichev at the helm. He's bound to mess something up, and I'm sure all Modena fans are sitting there just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about Stoichev having a little bit too many toys to play with on this team, because like I said, this team has options. I really had no idea that they could interchange so many parts and keep that high of a level. We talked about, I'm not high on Luca Spirito. He played great in that first match, and then they completely changed things up, and Rafael sets a masterclass to beat his old team in Trentino in the second one. But we got to wrap it up with talking about this Sapochnikov kid again. I mean, not only is he 7'3", not only did he have 8 blocks, which is an absolute mistake on the Trentino side, and continuing to set the ball into him on outside attack against him.
Can we focus on that for just 2 seconds? Sorry, Rob.
The blocking?
Yeah, because like how often do we see big guys like that be terrible
suck at blocking? Yeah, exactly.
Brutal blockers. He's so quiet with his blocking.
Yeah.
He doesn't try to like. Man, this kid is potentially revolutionary. And I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see how teams adjust to him, because I guarantee you every team, like not only like every team in the world right now is doing video on him because no one knows who he is.
That's exactly the thing. I want to see how long a kid like Sapochnikov can keep this up. Now, you can't teach height, which we say all the time. He's massive. He's the tallest player in the league. He's 7'3". That's ridiculous. And there's only so much that you can do to scout against that. But it was almost like the Micheletto effect. When Micheletto came on and was contacting the ball at that height, just nobody knew what to do against it. And then slowly but surely, the rest of the national teams in the world and the rest of the teams in the Super League have figured it out, and his numbers have kind of dropped off a cliff. I'm really curious to see when more film comes about this Sapochnikov kid's attacking, what other teams will try to do to slow him down. Because 2 elite level rosters in Trentino and Piacenza have failed to do so far, and it was electric to watch both those matches.
And I mean, on one side of the things, you've got a brand new Piacenza team it's this is a brand new Lego set that's just been put together, and in theory it looks good, and in theory it should work together great, but it's just not quite there yet. So you can kind of understand how they could upset Piacenza in game 1. But Trentino is like, that's their chalk team from last year.
It's the exact same team as last year.
It's the exact same team minus Zinger, I guess.
Yeah, different libero, and that's it.
But that means essentially nothing, right? So this is a hardened team, and of course you can also make the excuse that maybe Lavia, and actually even no, they've had some time off. Like, you got how many world champions on that team, and they're turning around and beating them. Like, I think Super League is blown wide open this year. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. And Verona wasn't even the only team to do some crazy stuff against 2 great teams in the first couple weeks of the season. What happened to Padova? Where did this come from?
And what happened to Dusan Pekovic?
Yeah, who is this guy? Where did he come from, man? I mean, Tommy and I talked about it. We both agreed that Padova had a pretty terrible offseason. They replaced Mattia Botolo at outside hitter with Asparuhov, and they replaced Linus Weber at opposite with Dusan Petkovic. And both of them, I think, were significant downgrades. What do I know? Those guys both had outstanding matches, both the first 2 matches of the year. Padova comes out of nowhere week 1, beats Modena in 5, 15-11 in the 5th. Ron Takahashi put on a clinic, 69% positive passing and 57% kills. Well-deserved MVP performance for him. He was unbelievable. And then they follow that up by beating the reigning champions in Lube Civitanova. Like, where did that come from? I thought that Padova had a horrible offseason. They were set to get relegated. I thought their middles were going to be invisible. I thought that Saita is a streaky setter, which is a bad thing to have in your setter. I thought Petkovic is terrible. And they have come out and stunned 2 perennial elite teams to start the year. Ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. I do, like, I watched the game against Lube, and I mean there was a few things kind of on the Lube side. I mean, they do have some injuries right now.
Lube's got a lot of issues,
and they're kind of working through some things. Alex Nikolov was fantastic for a part of it, and then was less than fantastic, especially in that.
He was terrible in the 5th.
He was terrible in the third set, and they just kind of let him in there to go for it. Didn't bring Yant into the end. I understand, like, it's early in the season. You don't make that decision if we're in March or February even. But it's early in the season. He's going to be he's going to be a superstar. Let's be honest. You and I both think he's the best 18-year-old we've ever seen.
Yep.
But it was definitely a learning, and it came at the expense of a win, because he was not great, but ultimately, like, it was just not a great showing overall for Lube, and Padova was just kind of running with it. They've got different lineups. They're looking good. Takahashi is, dare I say, like, he
looks awesome, man.
How much he's improved from last year to this year has been immense. This Padova team early on is really interesting and a lot of fun to watch.
Dude, nobody I'm looking at his passing numbers, Takahashi's passing numbers in the first two matches. In this 5-set match versus Lube Civitanova, 54% perfect passing, 77% positive passing on only 13 reception attempts. And that's the real thing, is that Zenger, the starting libero, is passing 29 balls. Asparuhov, who only played 3 sets, is passing 27 balls. Takahashi is passing the ball so well that he's being avoided. He, not the libero, is the one being avoided by opposing servers. Plus, he went 20 for 37 attacking with 2 stuff blocks out of nowhere. Like, Takahashi is playing awesome volleyball, and the only way this Padova team can continue to succeed is if they stay that well in system. And if Dusan Petkovic continues to go like 19 for 40 with 7 errors. I mean, that's a pretty classic Petkovic stat line. 19 for 47 errors. I mean, that's, I don't know, what, 25% efficiency maybe. 2 aces on 7 service errors. That's about a Dusan Petkovic stat line. I mean, that's what he's going to be. But if they can be that far in system, I mean, the middles, what do they go? 4 for 6 and 6 for 11. And they're just kind of not listening to the noise about everyone like me thinking they're going to suck. They're playing with all the confidence in the world, and they've beaten Modena and Lube to start the season. I can't even believe I'm saying that.
Yeah, but so, you know, we talked about Davide Saita, the setter, and we saw last year how streaky he was. But if we go back to the year before his team, when he was with Vibo Valencia, and when he had Thibaut Hassar and TJ DeFalco passing for him, remember how good that offense ran? Like, when he doesn't have to run for the ball, when he doesn't have to move much, when he has that first touch serve receive there, Saita can be one of the best, and he can run an absolutely fantastic offense. And that's what I think we're seeing right now. I mean, it might be a little too early to call it, but I think Padova could very much be like the Vibo from 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's possible. Vibo came out of nowhere. They made the playoffs, and they almost won a playoff series. I cannot believe that this Padova roster is looking like that this early. And again, it's early. It's only 2 matches in out of a 24-game regular season. But boy, Padova and Verona, the 2 most early impressive teams so far. And not far behind them is this team, Cisterna, has yet to drop a set. And I mean, they got Taranto for 1, but coming out the gates, first match of the year, and sweeping what we thought was going to be a good Milano team with only like 11 guys on the roster was very impressive to me as well.
Yeah, weren't you guys saying that basically like Cisterna's like roster is still incomplete and they still have a whole bunch of openings?
It was,
and they're out here 3-donging Milano. In Milano to start off the season. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, I didn't know who Marko Sedlicek even was. Croatian guy on the outside. He played great. Petar Zirlic gets a lot of credit. MVP of the match. He played great. Denis Kaliberda shows up at the last minute, like right before the first game, and he played decently well. F.A. Byram, our boy, came in, played great. He was actually really good. Started a lot, but played a lot more in the Taranto game. Michele Baranovic set a good offense. This nice win for Cisterna. They have yet to drop a set. I think that this was Milano really struggling more so. I think that this is a little bit more about them not being good enough with this new lineup configuration.
Yeah, I mean, especially in this match, you have to look at Abadapor, 4 for 18, 5 errors, only 22% hitting. That's not great. Like, they hit 44% as a team, and everyone else was decent except for Abadapor and Melgarejo. Melgarejo coming off the bench was 1 for 4. So yeah, you could just tell that the offense just wasn't clicking. Poro maybe struggling a little bit to find that connection with Abadapor on the left side. But I think, you know, like going back to this Cisterna offense, I think that's what they're going to do to teams this year, because you look at it, I just see solid all the way through.
Yeah.
And that if you don't like, and they have players that if you don't, that had a bit of an edge and a bit of a chip on their shoulder, let's say, so that if you don't show up against them, they're going to take advantage of it.
They only made they only made 3 unforced hitting errors, which is a really nice number. Just making other teams beat them, not giving that much away for free. Their serving numbers weren't quite as good, 2 aces to 13 errors, but Milano had 2 aces to 18 errors, so they gave away a lot more free points. Also, 11 blocks for Cisterna, extremely impressive. 3 from Aiden Zengel in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're gonna have to watch it. And like so far, it's just there's so much. I am so interested to see what's gonna happen this first week. Like usually the first few weeks are just chalk, right? You're like,
Right.
yep, this
Right.
is gonna happen, this is gonna happen. But it's been blown wide open. It just makes me want to watch it all
Me
the more.
too. A couple more matches we got to talk about, looking kind of more towards week 2. I know it's a little bit scattered, but we want to cover at least a little bit about every team. We had the battle for Milano in this one. Monza versus Milano. Monza is just basically a suburb of Milano, right outside of it. They're minutes apart, and we have a very unfortunate reverse sweep. If you are a Monza fan, Margarejo comes off the bench and is great, wins the MVP. We do have to address that for Monza, since Tommy and I did the show to preview the year, we were really excited about this Monza team. Our boy Steven Marr. Unfortunately, Cachopa of Fernando Crealing, the Brazilian setter, in preseason right before the start of the year, tore his ACL. So there's
Ouch.
almost no way he plays the entire year. Monza very quickly hit the transfer market. They tried to go get Micah Christensen at the last minute. That didn't work out. So Monza
Imagine though. Imagine if
well,
they just
we
picked up.
were imagining. Didn't happen. So Monza's going to be without one of their key players for the foreseeable future. Their backup setter, this Croatian guy, Petar Visic, who I don't know anything about. But they do go up 2-0 over the crosstown rivals, and they let it slip away. Milano comes back with a reverse sweep. Good match. Not the highest level match we've seen this year so far, but it's a nice kind of example of Milano's 3 outside hitter characters, because you got Yuki Ishikawa, you got Milad Abadapor, who started, and then Osniel Margarejo came on off the bench. It was great. 14 for 29 attacking, and wins the MVP in a reverse sweep.
And of course, you've got your golden boy Jean Patry on the right side there.
That's right.
Too, who's probably their most consistent player, I'd say. And I mean, he wasn't this one too. 13 for 31.
And he looks just that offense, that aspect of the offense that we've been critical of, Poro's inability to really connect with Patry on the right side, looked better. It's looked better in 2 matches so far. Still definitely some work to do, but if you can get Patry in a position where he can be as efficient as we've seen him be on the national team, then this Milano team can go some places.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once again, like I think there's so much parity in the league this year, and especially I think we've seen it so early on. It just, I don't think that there's truly a favorite. Like the top 4 for me is.
I think there is.
I mean, yes, obviously there's, you have to look at that Perugia offense, Leon Semeniuk, the list goes on. But after that, like I think that the groupings, like the lines between the groupings, are much more blurred this season than maybe they've been in quite some time.
Yeah, and that makes it just electric to watch. 2 more teams that came into the season as definite contenders played one another in week 2. That's Modena and Piacenza. Modena wins the match 3-1. Rough start for Piacenza, 0-2. I mean, both these teams got upset in week 1 and 5 by like serious underdogs, and one of them was going to go 0-2. Sure enough, it's Piacenza. Now they haven't had Riccardo Lucarelli at all yet. He has yet to see the floor this year. But I have expected them to be a little bit better. The offense just hasn't quite been there. Yoandi Leal hasn't quite been there after an amazing world championship. Yuri Romano hasn't quite been there after an amazing world championship. And Piacenza have dug themselves a bit of a hole so far.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to see how this Piacenza team unfolds. And I mean, I feel like we've seen it with time and time again. And it's not the players that I don't necessarily trust. I think it's the organization that is Piacenza, because how many times have we seen fantastic athletes go into Piacenza? And I mean, even look at the team that they had last year on paper. That was fantastic. But you didn't really do anything with Aaron Russell. You just kind of let him slip away. You've had Addis Lagungia for the year, and he had injury problems. So that makes me question some things as well too, right? So it's just the question. I think that there's some organizations that are winning organizations. Trentino is a winning organization.
That's right.
Lube is a winning organization. Modena is a winning organization. And even when they're not as good, they still know how to win. I don't know if Piacenza is a winning organization. I think they have winners on their team, but as a collective from the front office throughout the entirety of the team, I don't know if they're winners.
Bernardi, gotta place some blame on the head coach in that situation. I mean, this stat sheet is weird. Piacenza versus Modena. Francesco Recine only had 5 attempts and started every set at outside hitter. I just don't understand how you can't give him more balls when Romano gets 36 and Leal gets 30. I mean, that distribution makes no sense. Then Robert Landy Simone in 4 sets only gets 9. Again, he's the best middle blocker in the world. You got to feed the man the rock. I mean, I know they're missing Lucarelli. He's going to be a big factor when he comes back. Maybe Rechine's dealing with some kind of injury we don't know about too, but just not the start we were expecting with all the moves that Piacenza made in the offseason. And on the Modena side, I mean, if you listen to the preview, Tommy and I agreed, and Tommy's a Modena fan, that the key player for them this year is going to be Tommaso Rinaldi. Kind of floated around the Superlega a little bit, was brought up in the Modena system, went on loan to Cisterna last year. Now he's back. He's going to start every match at outside hitter. 8 for 18 with 5 errors in this one. Not super good. Decent passing numbers, but I thought he hung in there well enough, didn't get himself substituted off other than a couple backcourt trips. Irvin Ingapet was great. Adas Lagumja was even better against his former team, and Modena with a much-needed win.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of question marks for me in this Modena team this year. There's just like you said, the fact that Rinaldi is one of the guys that they're going to be leaning on is a question mark to me. I know he's been brought up in this system, but let's be honest, like he's nowhere near even seeing the court in the Italian depth chart and in the system. So right, like there's so many other guys that come before him. So how well can Ingapeth do, and can Lagumja stay healthy for the entirety of the season? Right. You've got an aging Bruno who we saw kind of like lose a lot of steam and a lot of his shine and luster at this World Championships. An aging Dragan Stankovic. I just don't know what this Modena team really has to offer in the long term this season.
All totally fair questions, and they're going to get a real challenge this coming weekend. They play on Sunday versus Lube Civitanova, so we're going to see how that one goes. Both those teams kind of need that win. To talk about Lube just a little bit more, because we talked about them losing that weird one to Padova, and they put Nikolov, like you talked about Alex Nikolov's performance. It's important to note that they put him on the right side.
Yes, absolutely.
He was lined up opposite the setter. Ivan Zaitsev has started both matches as a full-time outside hitter so far.
But it's like you have Gabby Garcia.
That's what I don't understand.
You have Gabby Garcia, you have Yant, you have Botolo, you have Zaitsev. Like, what's going on? Like, why don't
really have Yant? Yant is not. If Yant could start, he would, and right now he can't, which is why you've barely seen him. And I think that'll solve a lot of Lube's question marks. But Zaitsev doesn't want to play outside hitter. He has made that very, very clear. And why do you have Gabby Garcia if you're going to put Alex Nikolov on the right side, which is not his position? And like we saw in the 5th set against Padova, he did not look comfortable, made a bunch of terrible errors. Like, why would you take an 18-year-old kid and play him out of position when you have his actual position, one of the great players in Italian history, playing out of position where he doesn't want to play? I'm really confused by this Lube team so far.
Yeah, I mean, just the decisions being made here are questionable at best. Let's say if I'm Gabby Garcia, I've signed a big contract. Last year, I had a pretty good year. I'm pissed off right now, right? Like I was a big player in the NCAA for how many years and a big star, and you've got a kid who was only in there for 1 year, right? They come in, and I know he had a pretty good VNL, and he got to play World Championships and all of this stuff, and he did a lot of good things for Bulgaria. But man, like if I'm Gabby Garcia, sorry, I'm causing hell in the change room.
Yeah, definitely a weird situation. We'll see if Lube can bounce back versus Modena. I think we've covered pretty much every team so far except for these two. Talking about the prohibitive favorites, Perugia. They start 2-0. We haven't talked about Taranto yet either. They've had a rough start. They don't look very good at all. But Perugia beat Siena. Siena took a set from them. Great, whatever. Perugia didn't even play Wilfredo Leon in the first match, and they didn't even play Kamil Semeniuk in this match. They still won pretty easily. That's the sort of ridiculous level that I expect from Perugia match in and match out. They can play every single guy on their roster interchangeably and still win. I think Jesus Herrera played a good amount of opposite in this one. Let me double check that.
Yeah, he did. I did tune in for it a little bit, and he was on when I played. But to be perfectly honest, Rob, I don't really want to talk about Perugia because there's nothing much to be said right now, and we're going to talk a lot about them this season. So let's talk about all the other interesting teams who are going to be chasing after Perugia, because from what I've seen, Like, I think Perugia is the best team in the league. I could not tell you who the second best team in the league is right now.
I agree. The Perugia is not interesting because everyone knows that they're amazing, and sure enough, they're amazing. Great, they're 2-0. I agree. I don't want to talk about them that much. We will talk about them later. Siena, don't have that much to say about them. They kind of are who we thought they were. Great.
They are who we thought they were. We
thought
let
they
them
were.
off the hook.
I mean, they made 21 hitting errors in a 4-set match. That's brutal. So, whatever. And then Taranto, last but not least, not a good start at all. Haven't taken a set yet. Offense doesn't look very good. Eric Lepke, mediocre at best to start the year.
I have no idea what's happened to him. Truly, like I don't know what's going on there.
They got 3 donged by Cisterna, and that's a team that's just not quite on that level. So, I mean, Lepke's numbers weren't bad. 12 for 25, only 1 error. That's fine. But
okay, yeah, that's actually pretty good.
6% perfect passing needs some work.
Yeah, that's definitely the issue there. All right, we want to look forward to this weekend here in the Superliga.
Absolutely. So I don't have a graphic for this weekend schedule. You can check it out on legavolley.it or Flash Scores, where we like to follow along with scores.
There is some big
good ones.
Big matches.
Perugia versus Verona. A huge test of if Verona can keep this crazy streak alive, as they'll play the best team in the league. That's on Saturday.
Yeah. So there's a lot of volleyball to watch on Saturday with the finals going down of the Women's World Championships, and this matchup is one that you're going to want. It's starting basically at the same time. Fantastic. Love that. Volleyball World TV is going to be chaotic. This one is really like, how real is Verona, right? Does Perugia even bring out the roster?
Exactly. How real is Verona? That's going to be the question that we answer. And then you got Lube versus Modena on Sunday, and also Piacenza versus Trentino on Sunday.
Yeah,
man, are those some bangers?
I'm expecting that Piacenza Trentino one, because if Piacenza starts the season 0-3, that's going to be terrible. But on the flip side, if Trentino starts 1-2, like that's also an issue. So yeah, it's. Oh man, I'm really excited for the Superliga season. Like, there's just so much. Like, even like last year, I kind of knew where everything was going to fall, but this year, I truly don't know.
Same here. We got Cisterna versus Padova. One of those teams is going to be 3-0, which is ridiculous to say. So a lot of good stuff going on this weekend in the men's Superliga. Again, if you're confused, if we're jumping around too fast, you don't know the teams, go back and watch the preview that we did. Because the only thing that's changed since then is, unfortunately, Cachopa tearing his ACL. Everything else, the starting lineups that we projected in that show, are pretty accurate to what we've seen so far. So go back and watch that if you're confused. But the Superliga is awesome. You can watch it on Volleyball World TV. We're talking about it in the Discord all the time. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff this weekend.
Rob, make your picks for this weekend.
Perugia is going to stomp Verona. It's going to be a humbling experience for them. Modena is going to beat Lube, and Piacenza is going to beat Trentino.
Okay, I think Verona is going to beat Perugia. They're going to continue the upset.
No
they're going to win in 5. I also think that Modena is going to beat Lube. Milano is going to beat Siena. Piacenza is going to beat Trentino. Padova is going to beat Cisterna, and Monza is going to beat Taranto.
Okay, yeah, I like most of those picks. All right, you want to move on to the Plus Liga, another league that I want to definitely divert some more focus to this year on the 9x9. It's a little trickier to watch because it's not on Volleyball World TV. But again, we did a huge preview of the Polish Plus Liga. I think we agreed the second best men's league in the world. Me and our boy Adanos from the Discord did a long preview about this a couple weeks ago. Again, you're going to want to watch that to just get a baseline for who's on what roster, what teams are good. That's a nice resource. 16 teams in the Plus Liga this year is a lot. And what that means is, since they have to play each other twice, it's 30 matches per team. There's basically no days off. Whereas like the Superliga, they're basically playing only every weekend.
Yeah.
The Plus Liga is playing pretty much every day. At least there's at least like a match or two going on every day. It's pretty wild.
The Plus Liga is like an NBA schedule, right? Like you're playing midweek games. You're playing like on Wednesdays and Fridays and Thursdays and Mondays. It's all over the place. I love it.
Oh, it's awesome.
I love the fact that there's midweek games. And you're not trying to cram in all you're watching at one time. I want to understand.
It's way better. I mean, if we could watch every game, it's something that I would have on like pretty much every day. I'd be watching a Plus Liga game.
You can tell that the Plus Liga has like a national TV deal because like they're doing it so that you can focus on one game at a time.
Imagine if other entities that scheduled volleyball were to take notes from this. Imagine what might be possible. Anyway, here's the standings for the Plusliga so far. Everyone's played 3 matches. There's 16 teams in the league, which is a lot, so we won't spend that much time on this. We've got a Ukrainian team in the Plusliga this year. Barkom Lviv, so far in last place. They're struggling to get their feet wet, but it's cool that the Plusliga has expanded over that southeastern Polish border to Lviv, which is just across the border there in Ukraine. I understand they're going to be kind of headquartered in Poland for the most part this year. Can't remember what town. I wish I remembered what town Adanos told me that Lviv was kind of going to be based in this year, but whatever. We can go through some of the results so far. Here's the results from the first week. Yashevsky is one of my takeaways. They look great. Zaksa with despite all of their losses, or their one loss being Kamil Semeniuk, they beat an Olsztyn team that's good, and they didn't even play Marcin Janusz, and they barely played Alexander Slivka, and they still beat him in 4. Rosovia looks pretty good so far, and Zawiercie looks pretty good so far. Those are my takeaways.
I think that once again, I think we're going to see a lot more parity in the Plusliga this year, especially since that, like looking at it past week 1, like Zaksa has already lost a match. I think it's going to be blown open. The past few seasons, it's been Zaksa at the top and JW but right behind them, and everyone else chasing. Right. And this year, I think it's going to be a little bit more open, and it's going to be exciting to watch. Yeah,
different story. I mean, Adanos actually on the show, he picked Zawiercie to win the league, which I was really surprised by. And I mean, it's been so dominated by Zaksa and Yashemsky for the past several years, like since the last time Rosovia was legitimately good, that picking a team outside that group, like a kind of a newer team like Zawiercie to win the league, was a pretty crazy take, but they look good so far. They beat Skra in 5 in the first week. They then beat Zaksa in game day 3, which was a huge one. We can break down the stats of that a little bit because that was a really interesting match. Zawiercie, by the way, this is the team that had Juros Kovacevic and Facundo Conte last year. They lose Conte in the offseason, but they bring in Bartosz Kfolek. So still quite a good squad over there. I mean, and they're going to play Champions League.
Based off this past season, I mean, Conte wasn't fantastic for me. I really think he peaked last year with the Olympic run and everything. And you know what? Even though we saw Kfolek in limited action for Poland, I really, really liked him. Like, we got to see him personally in Ottawa at the VNL, and I really like his game. I think he's an asset to any team, so it doesn't surprise me whatsoever that he's making an immediate impact for Zawiercie.
Yeah, Kfolek was 18 for 39 attacking in the 4-set win over Zaksa, only 4 errors. That's pretty good. Juros Kovacevic, 19 for 37. That's pretty good. Let's see. Service numbers: 5 aces, 15 errors for Zawiercie, 5 aces, 16 errors for Zaksa. Zawiercie definitely passed the ball better. And I mean, about Zaksa, I mean, everybody knows that their one glaring hole this year is no Kamil Semeniuk. He left to Perugia. I had Eric Shoji on the show last week. We talked about Champions League. We talked about his team. They've got Wojciech Zielinski, who's been the second outside hitter so far.
Yeah, Karyagin's not even seen the court.
Right. Eric told me that Karyagin rolled his ankle. Karyagin saw the court in the first match, maybe the second match, but it looks like Zielinski is going to be the guy because we know that he can pass the ball, at least on paper. He didn't pass the ball very well in the second match, but his offensive numbers have been fine. They're just going to have to give a lot of balls to Slivka and Kaczmarek for Zaksa to go places.
I'm really interested to see what Kaczmarek does this season, because let's be honest, he's kind of always been in the shadow almost a little bit of Slivka and Semeniuk, who have done so many great things on the national team already. But Kaczmarek, I think, is just biding his time to be one of the next elite right sides, and I think he does it in a bit of a different way. I think his skill set overall is much more varied and overall than most right sides. So I'm excited to see him kind of take on this role as Semeniuk's gone, and they really need some of those more scoring options. But also, let's just take a look at the golden man, Mr. David Smith, out there going 7 for 11 with no errors, 3 blocks, like, and an ace. Like, this dude Like, remember when we thought he was washed? Like, why is
do.
John Speraw even picking him? Why is Zoxa signing him for a 2-year contract? This dude has been so unbelievable, and I'm so happy we were wrong on that.
Yeah, me too. Great style fit for that Zoxa team. It's great to still see him out there doing his thing. Shout outs to the Smith family. I've gotten to know his wife, Kelly. She messages me because she watches the show. So shout outs to them over in Poland, which is cool. A couple other takeaways, especially if you're a North American fan. Aseko Rasovia looks good so far. They're undefeated. They only dropped that one set to Shuvalki that you can see there on the screen. TJ DeFalco has had a pretty good start. He's wearing jersey number 59 for some reason, which is really weird. I guess like 11 was taken by Zizka. 8 must have been taken by somebody. Who knows? Just a pretty weird look to see 59 on the volleyball court. Yeah, it must be because 9. Rosard likes 9. 9 must have been taken by somebody. Who knows? Rasovia looks good so far. Maybe only a matter of time until they show some Rasovia-like cracks in the armor. Warsaw was a team that I liked going into the year. They do not look good so far, but they're dealing with some injuries. They brought Kevin Tilley in the offseason. He hasn't been healthy enough to play yet. And Arthur Schalpuk isn't healthy enough to play out either. So that's both their starting outside hitters. So they're going to struggle until they can get those two guys back.
I mean, that's a roster that's struggled for a while now, and I mean, there wasn't a time too long ago where Warsaw was one of the the cream of the crop of the Plus Liga. They didn't even make the playoffs last year.
Right.
They were embarrassing at the Champions League. Anastasi completely mismanaged that team. Is he gone there? Is Anastasi still around?
Anastasi's coaching Perugia now, man. He
failed. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, I knew
upwards.
That. Oh, man,
yeah, they've got Giampaolo Madei now, another Italian guy. I mean, their roster is better. They now have nice security at the setter position with Jan Firle. They brought in Linus Weber. I just think they need their outside hitters to get healthy, and Warsaw is going to be fine, but not a good start for them. Olsztyn is a fun team, especially if you're American. They've got Taylor Averill and Josh Tuaninga, but they lost to a shorthanded Zoxa team, which was kind of weird. They lost to Yashemski, and then they beat Katowice in game 3. So tough start to the year, but I think that team's going to be pretty good. JW looks great. Stefan Boyer has been starting at opposite for the most part. I'm curious to see how long that keeps up.
I feel like he's had a bit of resurgence, though. Like, I feel like since he's been back with the French team a little bit this year, like we were seeing him playing like Qatar and random leagues around the world, right?
He kind of got pushed out of
kind of
Verona.
redeemed himself. He's redeemed himself a little bit.
I hope so, and I think if Yashemski can be the championship caliber team and make a deep run in Champions League like they want to be, then Stefan Boyer's got to be their opposite. Like Jan Hadrava just puts a real ceiling on where you can go, and if Boyer can be more consistent, then they've really got a chance to win this thing. I mean, they've got Marcelo Mendes coaching as well. Maybe he can be the guy to get it out of them. Another notable result on this one here in week 3, Bielsko-Biała beats Charny Radom in 5. 2 teams that are not good, but they're notable because Charny Radom has Uncle Mo. If you're curious about where Mauricio Borges is playing this year. And Bielsko-Biała is the team promoted from the Polish B League, and they have Jake Haynes. So Jake Haynes actually gets MVP of that match by some act of God.
They also have shout out to my boy Dalton Sanowski,
the
only Canadian, who did come off the bench and got 1 point in this one. So big shout out to the big guy from Saskatchewan for scoring his first Plus Liga point.
Wow, big shout out to the tune of 1 entire point.
Hey, you know what? That's more points than you and I have ever scored in a Plus Liga match. So, you know what? Saskatchewan to the Plus Liga, that's quite the journey, and I'm going to celebrate it.
Totally fair point. The Plus Liga is cool. It's going on all the time. There's matches literally all the time, so it's more difficult to really look forward to it for the week. I'll try look at the schedule really quick and pull out any matches that might be good.
I mean,
Chemsky versus Zawiecie. There's a good one. JW versus
you can also
Zawiecie
always
Sunday.
just join the Discord. In the Discord, we have the today's matches feed, and that'll tell you exactly what's going on day by day in all of the top leagues in the world, right? So, yeah, you want to know what's going on? Just join the Discord, and we've got the today's matches feed nicely provided by our boy Philip from Berlin in Germany. So yeah, just once again, another reason to sign up for the Discord.
Yep, got to join the Discord. No reason not to. So yeah, JW versus Zawiecie is clearly the marquee matchup this weekend. That's Sunday morning North American time. So hop in the Discord. We'll see if we can help the people globally out with ways to watch that match. But yeah, the Plus League is cool. It's going on all the time. So just tune into the matches when you can. One of the later things I want to cover on the show is this. I want to talk about Germany a little bit, Everett.
I do think that due to the Canadian and Americans playing in that league, I do think we should focus a little bit more on Germany this year.
I agree. So the German Super Cup has kicked off the season. The Super Cup thing is something a lot of the leagues do to just kind of throw a tournament at you early in the year. Germany does it before the regular season even starts. So they actually haven't played regular season yet at all, but the German Super Cup is completed. No surprise that the Berlin Recycling Volleys win it again. They beat Friedrichshafen in the final, but it is kind of more open this year than years past. Berlin is not the powerhouse, at least on paper, that we're used to them being. So maybe they're not a shoo-in to win everything in Germany this year. But the most fun team in the Bundesliga, especially if you're American or Canadian, is Lüneburg. By far the most fun team.
Lüneburg is going to be the team to watch. If you guys are fans of Out of System, you already know that they've got the Worsley bros. They've got Joe Worsley. They've got Gage Worsley. They've got Colton Colwell as well, Jordan Ewert. And in the middle, they've just got three banging Canadians in the form of Pierce Ashenko, Jordan Schnitzer, and Xander Ketrazinski. And not to mention, they're all they're led by their head coach. Why am I blanking on his name right now?
Stefan Hubner.
Yeah, Stefan Hubner. We literally hung out with him in Ottawa.
Yeah, he's the man. I love Stefan. He's great. And we celebrated his birthday that last night of VNL.
Oh, we did. I completely forgot about that. But all to say that he's the assistant coach on the Canadian men's national team, working with three middles from the Canadians men's national team. And this Lüneburg team has some potential to do some damage in the Bundesliga this year, especially with Lucas Massa on the right side. He's an absolute monster. Another guy on the German team that we got to see in Ottawa. It's the best Lüneburg roster I think I've seen in a long time.
It's also the most fun, and
absolutely,
so they're going to be really fun to follow along with. And if you're new, the way that the German Bundesliga started to produce their matches last year and have continued to do so now live on Twitch with this whole Bounce House. That Bounce House is kind of the name of the production arm. Twitch.tv/Spontent is one of the channels. Follow everything they have on social media. They are so modern, so fun. It makes me want to learn German so I can understand all the memes and the guys.
Duolingo sponsor us so we can learn some German.
Dude, such good productions. They do such a good job with the Bundesliga, and it's free to watch globally. No geo blockers, nothing like that. Easy to follow along with. Great league, great production. Got to give them a shout out.
What's even better about the Bundesliga, I think, in general, is that they have such a strong link between their indoor leagues and their beach leagues, right? So Spontent is the company started by Alex Wackenhorst, who's formerly is a beach player for Germany, and they were the ones who started broadcasting all of the beach events, and they have a fantastic beach tour in Germany, and they're people who do it for the right reasons. And as Rob says, the hands down the best production value in volleyball, and you can tell that they actually care and that there's volleyball people actually making decisions. Shocker. Who knew that would be such a good idea?
You can tell that even if you don't speak German, and that's the best part, is that it comes across so clearly that they're just everybody involved with producing those games knows volleyball and loves volleyball and cares. It's so refreshing. And if I spoke German, I'd be able to really just feel that even more. So all the shout outs in the world to them. Easy to follow along with the Bundesliga wherever you're at in the world. We got some Americans on Netzhoppers and Hersching as well. So there's a bunch of North Americans in that league, which is cool. So shout outs to the German league. Their regular season kicks off, I think, this weekend. Let's see.
Yeah, I think Netzhoppers are also led. You got Byron Keterakis setting for Netzhoppers. Hersching is going to be led by James Shaw at the setter position. So he's making his return to being a setter and playing professionally on the indoor side after seeing him kind of with Team USA this year. My boy Joy Mantha is holding things down for Gießen on the left side over there too. There's just so much going on in the German league, and it's a very underrated league, I think.
Very underrated, and yeah, no foreigner limits, which is why it's such a popular landing spot for North Americans. So give that one a follow for sure. Last but not least, Everett, I want to wrap up the show with just a couple pieces of news around some outstanding transfers, because I think the transfer game and the club volleyball is always really fun, and we kind of know everybody's landing spots by now. The main bangers this offseason were Kamil Semeniuk to Perugia and Namir Abdelaziz to Turkey. But there are a couple players whose futures are either still uncertain or have just now become certain as of very recently that we want to update people about. And a couple of these guys relate to the Russian league. So as you might know, the Russian league is still going on, even though none of the Russian teams are participating in CEV competition because the war's still going on. They're not doing anything outside their own borders, but the league is happening. And there are a couple very select foreigners that have figured out a way to get into the country and get back with their teams. One of those is Micah Christensen. So Micah Christensen is, in fact, back with Zenit Kazan. He is their starting setter. He has played for them early on in the regular season in Russia. I know he got some calls from Monza when Kachopa tore his ACL, but he is choosing to stay there with Zenit Kazan and play the season. So we'll see if and how long that lasts. But from what it sounds like, the situation inside Russian borders is secure enough that as long as Micah continues to get paid, I think he's going to stay there. Why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, there's no war going on in Russia. It's all on the border of Ukraine, and Kazan is nowhere near any of
Right.
that, thousands of miles away. But also too, I think that I remember hearing Micah talk about it a little bit with the onset, because he was one of those athletes that did stay and did complete the season, and just talking about that, maybe that some people weren't always in line with that, but that, at the end of the day, he had a contract, and there's also people involved in that club that he enjoys and stuff like that. And I think it's important to maybe separate the people that are involved as opposed to the politics.
That's a very good point. And similarly, I mean, there's a handful of other foreigners that are still playing in Russia. As far as I know, Zheniyar Gorbenikov is still over there. And another one, Matt Anderson, who was supposed to go maybe to China, maybe Japan. I'm not honestly sure which. Matt Anderson is signed with Zenit St. Petersburg. So he right now is in the United States, because getting to Russia, getting all the paperwork, and then physically getting there is harder than it's ever been. But sooner or later, the plan is for Matt Anderson to go and play full-time for Zenit St. Petersburg this year, where, I mean, him and Igor Kliuka as an outside hitter duo is pretty nasty. And I know Victor Poletayev is there. He's started every match so far, so maybe he's healthy, and maybe that team's going to be good. So that's the only two Americans that I know of that are headed to Russia this year. Christensen is already there, and Anderson is trying to find his way there as we speak.
Well, crazy. Is there anyone who's feeling the heat of Maxim Shaposhkov more than Victor Poletayev right now?
I'm very, very curious to see if and when the Russian national team kind of gets back into the mix, how much longer Poletayev can hold on to that second outside, or it's that second opposite spot. Because, yeah, if Shaposhkov is anything like we've seen him these first two Superliga matches, he better watch out.
Yeah, absolutely. I've not been a fan of Poletayev for a long time. I just, I think he's very streaky. He's not great out of system. He doesn't have great hand contact.
We can slanderous comparisons to him on this very show in the past.
He's 100% in that Shawan Vernon Evans, Ben Patch, Massey Mujai character of guys who are really good as they were young because they were really, really athletic, and then kind of petered off. What do you want me to say? It's 100% true. Tell me I'm wrong.
I will tell you you're wrong. I think he's better than all three of those guys, but we'll see. And we don't really get to watch that much of Russia because of the obvious, but he is there, and sooner or later he'll be joining Zenit St. Petersburg by Matt Anderson. Everett, there's one note that right in our show notes after the Matt Anderson bullet point, there's one that I really want you to talk about here, because there's been all sorts of uncertainty around one very certain Canadian, and now we kind of have some direction. Give us the update.
I mean, I didn't think there was much uncertainty. Shawan Vernon Evans is back playing for the Sakai Blazers, the same team that he had played last year for in Japan. When I spoke to him, I kind of understood, and from what I understood from some other people, that the plan was always to not play for the national team this summer. His plan was to actually play beach this summer with Stephen Marshall. Stephen Marshall needed to get surgery, so that didn't happen. That's why neither of them ended up playing beach, and Marshall ended up returning to the national team, and then play indoor in the wintertime. You can why not? If you can play both, and Siobhan Vernon Evans has represented Canada before on the beach at junior events and grew up playing beach volleyball, why not go for it? Make the money in Japan during the season, play the beach during the summertime. Kind of seems like the perfect world. But yes, Siobhan Vernon Evans is back playing professionally in Japan, where he was a top 4 hitter last season.
Well, I mean, it does. To most of the outside followers of Siobhan's career, it has not been nearly that certain that he was going to go back and do that, especially if you follow his Instagram and see all these posts with hashtag rebranding and a whole lot of basketball content. There is I mean, you could have easily drawn the conclusion that he would never touch a volleyball again. So that
basketball league he was playing in was like a glorified men's league, like it was.
This is why you're giving us the update, because I really wasn't sure what Siobhan was going to do. So
no, that was, it wasn't, and it's like one of those things that, he grew up with some of those guys. They all know he played for Team Canada. He went to the Olympics. Like he's a name, not to mention he's 6'10" and also played a little bit of ball growing up. So he gets invited to those runs, but it's nothing serious. It's not like he's going to go try to play for the CEBL. You can make he's probably making 6 figures playing in Japan.
He's making a lot more playing volley than he would in the CEBL.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. The CEBL is garbage. So I think he's going to play volleyball for still a long time. Whether or not we're ever going to see him in a Team Canada jersey, whether it's indoor or the beach, that remains to be seen. But yeah, I'm happy to see him continuing to play.
Yeah, me too. I was happy to see him back over in Asia, still banging high balls. A couple other guys that we need to update. One that we have no idea what he's doing is Bartosz Bednors. We have no idea what Bartosz Bednors is up to. He was training with Skra Belchatov for a little minute there. People were hoping that Skra would just sign him because they could really use another outside hitter of his caliber. His plan is still to go to the Chinese league. Now, the problem with the Chinese league is that in China right now, if somebody gets COVID, one person gets COVID, everything locks down. Everything. Like nobody's allowed to leave their places of living if one person gets COVID. So that policy is obviously very difficult. It's very difficult to run a professional sports league with that going on. That's why Matt Anderson didn't go there. And Bartosz Bednors is still trying to figure that out. I'm not even sure if they're going to be able to run a league at all if that policy is the case in China. So Bednors is still kind of floating around. Maybe he settles down in Europe or tries to go grab some money in China where they may or may not even play. Similarly, Thomas Jeschke is dealing with the exact same problem. He was trying to go to China this year. He has not been able to get over there. There is no news about the league. There's no news about travel. There's such high restrictions surrounding COVID in China that Thomas Jeschke right now is actually near me in Chicago where he's from as a volunteer assistant for the Loyola Chicago, I think men's and or women's teams. I'm not sure which, but he was trying to go to China and play. He right now is not in China, not playing. So I'm curious to see what he ends up doing. And then Aaron Russell, we know what he's doing. He's in Japan. He's playing with the JT Thunders this year. That is certain. So it's unfortunate. I wish we would see Aaron Russell playing in Europe somewhere, but at least his situation is secure.
Especially after the summer we saw Aaron Russell have with Team USA, both with VNL and the World Championships. Aaron Russell is, no offense to the Japanese league, but he could be doing so much better. He could be doing so much better.
Yeah, he could. I respect him chasing the paycheck, but there's some good foreigners in the Japanese league. I mean, Michał Kubiak, Bartosz Kurek, Dmitry Mazursky, Aaron Russell, and Siobhan Vernon Evans. And I was looking through all their rosters today. Thomas Edgar's not there anymore. He's in Turkey.
Okay, he was last year.
And now Yuji Nishida is back there. So like there's some players in the Japanese league. Last but not least, another very uncertain one. Max Holt is a name that a lot of people were asking questions about this summer because he did not even set foot in the American national team gym. Max Holt is not in a gym anywhere as of this moment. Right now, he does not have a club contract. He is not playing volleyball as of now, and I'm not even sure he's pursuing a contract anywhere. So that's all I know. But unfortunately, we may have seen Max Holt just kind of step into the shadows and off the court very unceremoniously. That's all I know about him right now.
That would be a shame if we lost Max Holt like that.
So that's it. That's some updates about some outstanding contract situations, and I think that's kind of about it for the show. So, right, Everett? Anything else?
Yeah, real quick, if you're watching this, there's 44 of you watching right now, and we've only got 10 likes. Drop us a like, show some love. If you don't want to go to thatvolleyball.store and buy some merch, if you don't want to become a member, that's fine. You don't want to spend any money. We absolutely understand that. But at the very least, give us a like. We love that you're here with us. We appreciate you that you're watching. We hope that if you're a new viewer from this summer, that you're going to continue and maybe learn a little bit something about professional volleyball and club volleyball, because it's fun and it's great, and you get to hang out with us some more. So drop a like to let other people know to come watch this as well, right? Make sure you give us a like, and if you watched a few of ours, just go back and like all of them. Just go down the list and double tap on all of them.
The YouTube algorithm works in magical ways, and the best
There we
thing,
go. Just
the best thing,
saw one come in.
yeah, there we go. Here we already got a couple. The best thing that you can do to support us for free is watch our stuff. And the real boosts in the YouTube algorithm that make our videos show up to people who are not subscribed to Volleyball Source is when they have a lot of likes, and then also the same people that like the video also comment on the video. And I'm not talking like comment in the live chat. I'm like the real comments after the live stream is over. That's the best way to boost the algorithm so that we can reach more people, is if you like the video and also comment on the video. That tandem really helps push the videos. And it's like, I know it's a stupid thing that YouTubers say all the time, but that's why, is because there actually is a difference.
Smash the like button, bro.
I hate that. I hate it. I hate it when people tell us to do it, but it is a way that you can support us. So help us out with that.
I know a bunch of you already watch our videos with ad blockers on. I personally, I actually do this. I don't use an ad blocker. I don't. Yeah, I don't, because like, hey, we're YouTubers. I want your ad money, so I'm gonna give that to other people on YouTube as well. So yeah, maybe just pause your ad blocker real quick before clicking on our videos.
Before watching Volleyball Source videos. Yeah, I mean that works. We'll take all the help we can get. So we will be back, Everett, this time next week for another similar, just kind of regular episode of the 9x9 as we get back to the routine. But also before that, we'll be back on Sunday. So this Sunday, October 16th, we'll be back to recap the entire Women's World Championship. The medal match is going down on Saturday, this Saturday, October 15th. We'll be back on Sunday to break it all down. Really curious to see who comes out of this semifinal. We've got Italy versus Brazil on one side. We've got United States versus Serbia on the other. 3 of those teams are going to get some medals, so we'll see who it is. And we'll be back on Sunday to break all that down in another special episode.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys Sunday. We're going to see you before then, because you're going to join us at the Volleyball Source Discord. If you have any questions, let us know there at that volleyball guy at R St. Clair 1 over on the Discord. And yeah, come hang out.
Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll see you Sunday. We'll see you next week, and we'll see you in the Discord. Thanks for watching.
Peace.